your man, Louie Tee. Welcome to the 2018 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series where your man Louie Tee aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2018 NFL Draft using our baseball grading scale, single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series, as we cannot tell how these players are going to pan out. And I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. And so we'll get a score for each and every single player selected in said team's draft. We'll apply bonuses when necessary, divide by the number of picks, which will then yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in the series picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer out there, are in total control, as this is the You Pick format. You simply have to be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos in this series stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. A prime example would be Panthers next, Carolina next. You get the point. Speaking of which, we're talking Carolina Panthers in their 2018 NFL Draft. And I've always talked about my affinity for Marty Hurney and the job he did in Carolina the first time around in Marty 1.0. Now Marty's back for seconds to finish what he started the first time around. And I must say, Marty has picked right up where he left off. This is a very good draft class here. And there's a couple of duds, I think, in here, but you can never go wrong with adding depth on your roster, even if guys don't necessarily pan out the way you want them to. But if you're talking elite level talent, this is another one of those drafts that Marty Hurney has produced some really high level talented football players for this Panthers roster. And I'll take it a step further. This is the happiest I've been for a black quarterback getting some talent on the roster since Donovan McNabb got T.O. back in like 2004. It's been that long since Cam Newton's been able to get some real help. I mean, last year, look at his receiver situation. The best receiver on your team, arguably, was your running back. If you don't want me to disrespect Devin Funchess that way, fine. The second best receiver on your football team was probably your running back. And even then, there's still a problem because Greg O was out. Greg O! He was out for much of the season. It was hard to watch at times, and I'll tell you this much. None of those guys are number one wide receivers, and that's where we start. I don't know if this guy's a number one wide receiver, but guess what? What's better than 1-2? 2 2s. And so we'll see if this guy emerges as a number one. I've always said all along that this guy strikes me, maybe a little bit bigger, but strikes me as a Steve Smith type of receiver. Nonetheless, we'll see what he brings to the table. First round, 24th overall selection. Maryland wide receiver. DJ Moore is the selection for the Carolina Panthers. The reason I double up on his name is because this is what the Panthers have been. This is what the game's been missing in Carolina for quite some time. A guy that can do everything on the football field at the receiver position. Kelvin Benjamin was big and he could move the sticks, but could he stretch the field? No. Ted Ginn Jr. could stretch the field, but did you trust him on 3rd and 7 to run that dig route? Maybe not. This is a guy here in DJ Moore that can do everything, and the Panthers have lacked that. Since Steve Smith's departure some 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, however long it's been. In any event, again, I don't know if DJ Moore is a number one wide receiver. I don't know, for that matter, if any of the receivers that came out in this draft are true number one wide receivers. But I'll tell you what, this guy's going to be a great complement to whatever the Panthers are putting out on the football field across from him, whether it's Devin Funchess or whomever. I love this selection. Gives Cam Newton another viable option to get the football to, something that they lacked a season ago. And they helped the tight end position in this draft. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. I'm not going to break down DJ Moore. If you're looking for that, you're going to have to go to my draft Prospects 101 series on the Louie Tee Network. Just go to the playlist section on the Louie Tee Network and go to the 2018 Draft Prospects 101 series. You'll find his breakdown and some of the other players that I was able to get to prior to the draft. But I'll say this is a big-time selection for the Panthers. Gives Newton a target that he's lacked on this football team for some time, a guy that can do just about everything. Get it in his hands quickly, he can make something happen. Get it to him on a slant in stride, he can make something happen. Get it to him on the 9-ball, he can make something happen, but still not afraid to go across the middle and go and catch a dig route if need be. That's what DJ Moore can bring for you. The ability to make something out of nothing, something the Panthers have lacked at the receiver position for a long time, and still have the ability to go and run the vertical 9 route and win and get behind receivers. You haven't had that since Ted Ginn left. You're going to get that now with DJ Moore in the first round, 24th overall selection. Maryland wide receiver DJ Moore is
hit from high. It's a deep. It is out of here.
Now, this next player I am going to break down, and this is a guy that I'm not so sure about right now. Now, I've got some qualms. I've got some questions. Don't know if I have enough answers right now, but we'll discuss that here in a second. But nonetheless, let's get to this pick because this is a necessary evil as the Panthers made some moves in the offseason. One, trading away Darryl Worley to the Eagles. He was subsequently released, and then they signed Bashaud Breeland in free agency only to cut him loose after a failed physical. So that position needs an upgrade, and not to say that you have a world beater out there already as it is in James Bradbury. This guy, you're going to need him to come in and maybe step up and be a big-time baller for you. I don't know if he's up to that challenge or not. Nonetheless, second round, 55th overall selection, LSU cornerback Dante Jackson is the selection. $5'11", $178. We're going to discuss that a little bit later on. 7 reps of 2 1/4. 4 career INTs. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But there's a lot of things to like with this guy before we get to the things that I do not so much care for with Dante Jackson. But let's start with the pros, shall we? Obviously, speed is the first thing that jumps off the screen with this guy. 4'3", 240. Turned around and ran a 4.31 at the LSU Pro Day as if he needed to run it again. He was just showing off. But the guy can run. He can pick him up. He can put him down. And so that's obviously where you start with Dante Jackson. Athleticism, acceleration. I put down in my notes here, and I watched him in 4 different games against Ole Miss in 2016, against Louisville in 2016, versus Notre Dame in 2017, and versus Auburn in 2017. And so against Auburn, late in that game in 2017, he had a nice knockaway late on a rollout on a 4th down where he literally had to track the receiver all the way across the field to the sideline, the opposite sideline, and he was able to show off that acceleration by getting to that football and knocking it away at the last second. So the acceleration, again, when you're running a 4.32, do I really need to overstate just how much acceleration that this guy comes equipped with? Agility and change of direction, they're off the charts. Watch this guy move fluidly. He loves to break on slants. And so this is a guy that change of direction, agility. Against Louisville, down by the end zone, they're running a slant. He recognizes it maybe a little bit late, but because of that change of direction, that elite change of direction and acceleration, still able to break up that pass down by the end zone, which goes to my next pro, anticipation and awareness. I talked about the slant versus Louisville. The one against Troy, he also had a breakup on a slant versus Troy. All of these show his awareness of what's going on, what the receiver is trying to do, trying to set him up to do, and being able to break on the football. Look, locate, and contest. You know, that's one of my biggest things for a cornerback is being an LLCer. Look, locate, contest the football. Does he always do that? No. And I think Ole Miss in 2016 is a great example of this guy just refusing to look back. Ole Miss made it a point of emphasis to go after him. They stayed away from Tre'Davious White. They targeted Dante Jackson mercilessly in that football game, and he simply refused to look back for the football. When he finally did, guess what he did? Guess! He picked it off when he looked. But the other 10 times he refused to look, whether it was penalties for pass interference or back shoulder fades or completions, he was targeted heavily, and he had a rough go of it against Ole Miss in 2016. Ball skills, we'll get to that a little bit later on. But man coverage ability, I got down in my notes. Good one versus Ole Miss in 2016. I talked about that INT. He looked back for the football. And if this guy can continuously make it a habit of looking back for the football, I think good things are ahead for him because he's such a dynamic athlete. He can leap and get up in the air, as you saw on that particular play versus Ole Miss in 2016, where he climbs the ladder, goes up and gets the football, actually showcases some hands, which is something I question with him. Also against Texas A&M in 2017, I watched him pick off a pass on a slant, and it was a beautifully executed play. The pass wasn't the best thrown football, but it doesn't matter. He anticipated slant, jumped it, and picked it off with his body. Nonetheless, he was able to make the play. Zone coverage, nice eyes underneath versus Florida and Alabama. I was able to take a look at those games briefly. He was in some zone coverage underneath. Quarterback tried to get the football outside. Against Alabama, he should have had a pick. All right, ball went right through his hands. Against Florida, he was able to get a piece of the football and knock it away. So he's got some eyes. When he's able to see what the quarterback's trying to do, he's able to make some plays on the football. And then versatility, this is a guy that was a kick returner, a slot guy, and a boundary corner all at LSU. So you get a little bit of versatility with Dante Jackson from that perspective and standpoint. You go from those pros to his cons. Measurables. At 5'11", 178, I've got a huge problem with this guy playing out wide. I don't love this pick from the standpoint of they're going to play him out wide first. They're going to give him, and that's always been my motto and mantra is, look, until a guy proves to you that he can't, give him a chance to prove that he can. So when people tell me, hey, this guy can't play tackle, he's got to play guard at the next level, and he played tackle 3 or 4 years in college, I'm looking around like, why? You know, show me why he can't do it. Because if he was able to do it, then I need proof that he can't at the next level. And as soon as I see that, okay, we'll make the transition and the switch. In this particular case, I saw instances where he struggled with size out wide in college. I don't need to see a repeat and a duplicate of that. Because in this particular division, where there are big receivers that will destroy smaller corners, I don't need to see that on repeat. So that scares me a little bit, especially for this particular division. Maybe you go off to a different division like the AFC West or the AFC East. You may be able to get away with that. This is the NFC South, where big receivers go and ball and small corners go to die. So I'm a little nervous. I'm not going to lie to you. If you told me he was going in the slot, I'd wipe my brow and say, okay, I can live with this pick. You tell me he's going out wide, I'm scared, okay? 5'11", and it's not the 5'11" that scares me. Because I was a little nervous last year when the Bills spent a first-round pick on a similar guy from LSU in Tre'Davious White. Similar height at 5'11". Tre'Davious White was about $193 though, $192. Dante Jackson's 178. I'm watching guys toss him around. Go watch the first play versus Notre Dame, LSU on defense. Go watch what Notre Dame's wide receiver does to Dante Jackson on that first play. Literally two-hand chucks him 4 yards off of him as he tried to press him at the line of scrimmage. Just took his hands and pushed him 4 yards off the ball. Anyway, next con, ball skills. I don't think he can catch. I don't think he has natural hands. Let me rephrase that. I don't think he has natural hands. All right, I watched him drop a pick six versus Auburn at the end of that football game that would have put a nice, they were going to win anyway, but would have put a nice exclamation point on that game. Pick six, easy walk-in touchdown. No one's catching this guy, runs 4.34, 4.32 40, and he dropped it right through the wickets. I watched him drop a pick versus Arkansas, right in the flats, had an opportunity. Don't ask me what happened. I don't know. Stop asking. The Ole Miss pick in 2016, that's an anomaly. When he goes up and snatches it out of the air with his hands are very suspect. I don't think he can really catch. The pick against Texas A&M, that was with his body. I don't think he's got natural hands, so I worry about him in that instance. Tackling and willingness to tackle. He's willing to tackle. The spirit is there. Unfortunately, the body is not. This guy is willing to throw his body around. I love the feistiness and the competitiveness. He wants to. He means well, but he's a $178, man. I mean, I don't know how many dudes you're getting down at a $178 that want to run you over. I just don't know what he's going to do in that situation. Blitzing capabilities, I think he can be a much better blitzer because of his speed. He wasn't really utilized in that capacity. I want to see him utilized in that capacity at the next level because running that fast, unnoticed, off an edge, he could be a problem. You know, quarterback gets, by the time that fifth step hits the ground, Dante Jackson's on his ass and looking to strip the football out. So I'd like to see him blitz a little bit more. I don't think, and that's not his fault. He just wasn't asked to do that as much at LSU. But nonetheless, I've got an issue with his size, and you're going to ask him to play out wide initially. That may quickly change to him being slotted inside because I don't know if he's going to be able to survive outside with the likes of Mike Evans and Julio in your division. And we're not even going to New Orleans and what they're doing. And they've got a emerging beast out there themselves and Michael Thomas. It's just too many big boys in your division for this small ant to try to come in and play with the big boys. I'm nervous. Still, with all that being said, there's a lot of talent here. It's raw, and a lot of it is undeveloped, but there's a lot of talent here. So in the second round, 55th overall selection, LSU corner Dante Jackson for me is so this next one was one that I wasn't too sure about because I said, when the hell does Tennessee produce anything worth having on the defensive side? No, we know what Alvin Kamara was last year. What do they actually produce on the defensive side? And I know Derek Barnett came out of Tennessee last year, went in the first round in the Philadelphia Eagles, like 14th overall, and that's cute. But Tennessee doesn't do anything of note. Like, what do they do? What do they produce? The last defensive back that came out of Tennessee, dare I say Eric Berry? And I might be forgetting somebody, but I said all of that to say this. When the hell does Tennessee produce anything worth having anymore? So I was a little skeptical with this third round selection, 85th overall, Tennessee defensive back, Rashawn Golden. That's the selection. While I was skeptical, I am no longer skeptical. This guy made me a believer. He won me over. And 6'1", $197, not the biggest guy in the world. 8 reps of 2 1/4. So here we go with another defensive back that is afraid of the weight room. Broken foot in 2015 cost him all of that season. So that's something to keep in mind. Hopefully that is behind him. He's played over the last 2 seasons and stayed relatively healthy. 4 career forced fumbles, 3 of which came in 2017. Very impressive. And 1 career INT. Here, yet again, another guy that I question. Do you have any goddamn ball skills? We'll talk about that a little bit later, but let's get to the good with Rashawn Golden. We start with his measurables. I had to convince myself to put this in the good category because 6'1", I love it. Want more of it. $197 at safety. But then when I see the way that this guy is used, I say, hey, I don't know if I have a problem with that because he's more of that slot safety, the guy that you want dropping over the slot, you know, running with some of these tight ends and dropping into some zones and being creative. You move this guy around, he can do some things. Similar to a Minkah Fitzpatrick on a much poorer scale, okay? But in any event, he can do some things. So measurables, I said, okay, we can slide with that. Athleticism, this guy's a really good athlete, man. And it was funny, I was watching one of the games against Alabama, as a matter of fact. I watched him against Florida. I watched him against Alabama, both in 2017. And I was listening to some of the commentary, and the guy said, Gary Danielson, who I think doesn't always know what the hell he's talking about, but he said, somebody asked me, on this Tennessee defense, who's really good? And I looked around and I said, look, I don't know if there are a bunch of guys that are good or not, but I can tell you this much. There's one guy on this defense that could play for Alabama and start for Alabama. And we know it's pretty tough to start for Alabama. He said, and it's Rashawn Golden, and he was right. And I saw why. Guy's a hell of an athlete. He's everywhere on the football field. Acceleration goes along with his ability to run. 4.61 40, not the fastest. He didn't time well at the combine. He plays faster than that. So I'm not going to kill him for his speed. I think he can run. He can move. He's a fluid athlete on the football field. Change direction and agility. It's really good. Anticipation and awareness. I got a couple of notes down here. Batted ball at the line of scrimmage as a blitzer versus Alabama. Look, you're not going to get there, but you're blitzing, free hitter. Make something happen. You know, a batted ball is just as good as an incomplete pass. You know why? Because it's the same thing. Go ahead and knock that thing down if you're not going to get to the quarterback. He had the presence of mind to do that. But helping break up a deep ball in coverage versus Alabama. So this was a beautiful play, okay? He's in zone coverage over the middle of the football field. You've got a corner outside with a third responsibility. He's in the middle of the field with another third. So they're in cover 3 is essentially what I'm telling you. And there's a post being run by the outside receiver. And on the inside, there's a receiver running a deep over route. So he's taking away that middle safety, and they're looking to hit the big post up top. And they would have won. Okay, that post was open, but Rashawn Golden at the last second sees what they're doing, stops, turns, pivots, which talks and speaks to this guy's change of direction, stops, turns, pivots, and then dives and knocks the football away at the last second. It doesn't get much more gorgeous than that. And so that's the anticipation and awareness that you're looking for from a guy playing center field in a situation where a guy's in cover 3 coverage. You look at him, his tackling and his willingness to tackle. He's throwing his body around. He's not afraid to come up and hit you despite being sub 200 pounds. This guy's not afraid to come in and mix it up. Love that about him. Man coverage ability. He's aggressive in man-to-man coverage. Is he always good? No. Is his aggressiveness always a good thing? No. But his aggressiveness is a part of his DNA. It's what he does. I have here in my notes, beaten on a deep over route versus Bama, but recovers for a knockaway. All right. Now, in being beaten here, a better ball beats him. Okay. It was because the football was severely underthrown, he was able to get back in play, but nonetheless, he got back into play and knocked it away. Now, I must warn you, he's a bit of a head case. Okay. Had the double bird salute at Alabama to some of the fans, had to apologize profusely for that. And also in that same game, that same exact play that I'm referencing, the receiver, after he makes the play, actually hits his head on the turf, probably has a concussion. He stands up over him and looks down at him like, you thought you was going to make that play? Think again. And easily could have been flagged for a 15. Should have been, as a matter of fact, flagged for a 15-yard. Don't stand over the man. Like, get your balls and all of that stuff out of the man's face. What's wrong with you? All right? That man's got a fan. Get your ass out of his face like that. So, you got a bit of a head case here. He's a little short. He's one taco short of a combination plate. But I've never had a problem with guys being a little loose as long as you're not costing your team yards and points with your shenanigans. As long as he knows how to tote that line, and I question whether he knows how to tote that line without crossing it. Again, the double bird salute and standing over a guy easily could have cost his team. I just hope he's level-headed at the next level. But in any event, he's very aggressive in man coverage. Zone, I like him better in zone just because I like when he's able to see what's going on. That's going to allow him to make more plays because of something we're going to talk about a little bit later on. In any event, blitzing capabilities, extremely aggressive around the line of scrimmage. Like I said, he'll get up, pressure you in man-to-man. He's aggressive around the line of scrimmage. They use him in so many different ways. Like I said, he's like a poor man's Minkah Fitzpatrick. And when I say poor man's, like really destitute. Okay, they're not the same, but they use him similar to the way Alabama uses Minkah. Around the line of scrimmage, he looks like he can be a linebacker at times. He's blitzing off the edge. You don't know when he's coming, when he's dropping, if he's in man. He's all over the place. They use him like that, and it's refreshing because, again, you don't get this kind of athlete out of Tennessee very often on the defensive side of the football. Field coverage and range, like I said, he's all over the place. So I don't know if his range is all that extensive, but just the fact that this guy seems ubiquitous. He just seems like he's everywhere on the football field. I just love the fact that he's got that kind of coverage in terms of just, he's everywhere. Versatility, I've got in my notes, this guy can play in a slot, which you see him do quite a bit on tape. He can play near the line of scrimmage as a strong safety, but then he can still play as a free safety, and you saw all of that on display watching him at Tennessee. So those are the good. things with Rashawn Golden. Here are the cons and a little bit of the bad stuff with him. He doesn't look back for the football enough for me. A lot of his breakups are him just guessing or timing up the receiver trying to catch the football. That's part of the reason, which goes to my next con, ball skills. One career interception, and that came versus Florida on a deflection. Okay, it's not like he went out and got it. He caught it off of a carom, off a deflection. I don't know if he has hands or not. And you won't really know because this guy doesn't look for the football enough. He's always trailing, which speaks to that 4.61 40 maybe. And some of his over-aggressiveness at the line of scrimmage. But he never looks back for the football. He's always playing the man, never the ball. And that's a pet peeve of mine. You know that. You got to be an LLC or you got to look back for the football. He's not doing that enough for me. Also, his durability and toughness. I talked about him, broken foot, 2015, missed all of that season. 8 reps of 2 1/4. At some point, that's going to catch up with you. If you're playing a very physically demanding position like safety, you need to be built for tough. I don't know if that's necessarily the case with Rashawn Golden, but one thing's for sure. This guy's a football player. You say what you want about him. He's a football player. And because of that fact, I really like this guy to the point that in the 3rd round, 85th pick overall, Tennessee safety Rashawn Golden for me is So we move on to the next pick in this draft for the Panthers. And look, I love this draft, and this might be my favorite pick in this entire draft class. It's a guy that I was really high on as we got closer and closer to the draft itself. This was a guy that was just shooting up my draft board, and to see him come off the board as the very first pick in the 4th round, I thought the Panthers did themselves a huge solid getting a guy that can learn from one of the best in the business at this particular position, but also going to come in right away and upgrade the position over a guy that no longer is on your roster in Ed Dickson. Of course, I'm talking 4th round, 101st overall selection. Indiana tight end Ian Thomas is the selection. Forget what you heard. This guy's an athlete, and he's going to change the game in Carolina. The reason I said I was so excited for Cam Newton is because you get DJ Moore, and then you double back and get more help and reinforcement in the form of Ian Thomas. With Olsen coming back and re-upping for a few more years, you add Ian Thomas to the mix, which is an upgrade over Ed Dickson. You add in DJ Moore. You got Devin Funchess. All of a sudden now, with McCaffrey, and then you get your other receiver and Curtis Samuel, who's just a playmaker, all of these guys into the mix. Cam's got an endless supply of guys to get the football to if you can just stay healthy now. This could be the most dynamic offense he's had, and we remember what he did the last time he had a dynamic offense in 2015. Need I say more? This guy, Ian Thomas here, 6'4", 259, is everything that you're looking for in today's tight end, and he's so raw. He still doesn't even know what the hell he's doing at the tight end position. You give this guy more time to learn, and he's going to learn from one of the best in the biz, and Greg Olsen. This guy's going to morph into one of the better tight ends. Give him 2 years. He's going to be one of the best in the league if he stays healthy. Missed 2 games in 2017, which is why I keep harping on him staying healthy. It's a guy that's missed some time over the life of his career, but he's starting to see that light bulb come on. He's starting to get it. Let's talk about his pros. Measurables, 6'4", 250, essentially 260 at 259. Boy, that's a good size for an NFL tight end, and he can move. Speed, 4.74. I'm telling you right now, though, when you watch him on the football field, he looks like he's running sub 4.7. I swear, you watch him catch that football against Penn State, and I watched him in about 4 different games. You watch him catch that football versus Penn State on an ad-lib. You tell me he's running a 4.74 when he gets tackled down at about the 2-yard line or so. You tell me that's a 4.74. I've seen 4.74 before. That didn't look like 4.74 to me. You tell me that against, who was it? Rutgers, when he catches the 67-yard touchdown, you tell me that that's a 4.74 40 on that catch and run for a score. That's not what I saw. So anyway, pass catching ability, one-hander versus Penn State in traffic. That wasn't a one-hander like he did against Rutgers, I believe it was, where he caught it one hand kind of behind him nonchalantly as he was galloping for a touchdown with nobody around. This one against Penn State, this is in traffic. Excuse me. Out of my way. Traffic. One-hander versus Rutgers for a 79-yarder. Excuse me, I said 67. 79 yards to the crib. So his pass catching ability, off the charts. I think this guy, and he double caught one against Penn State. But I think his ability to catch the football, I don't question it. Quickness and suddenness. He's got some subtleness with his route running ability. Saw him break a dude off against Georgia State. Gave him a little. I'm going to the seam route. No, I'm not. I'm going outside. Gotcha. Aha. Aha. Thought I was going to run the seam. Nah, buddy. Going outside. And so, boom, just like that. He gave him a nod to the seam. Bent it outside. Beautiful throw by the quarterback. Next thing you know, my man is off to the races again. And so, touchdown against Georgia Southern. So he's got a little bit of route running ability, some quickness, and I think he's still got some route running to do in terms of fine-tuning some things. I got down in my notes. Routes aren't crisp and sharp and not fully exposed to the full route tree yet. That's where the coaching is going to come in. He's a little rough around the edges, but with a guy like Greg Olsen there to show him the ropes, this guy could morph into one of the league's best in just 2 years' time. I really like this landing spot for him. And one thing I know about Cam Newton, he's going to use the hell out of his tight ends. This man's going to get the rock. So I love this environment for him where he's going to get a chance to learn from one of the best and a guy that's going to give him ample opportunities to make plays within their offense. He's a tough guy because he'll block. This isn't one of those tight ends like Mark Andrews or Mike Gesicki or all of the guys, Dallas Goedert that you heard about early in this draft that went off the board before him that don't want any part of blocking. They just want to catch it. This guy will do both, and he'll get even better as a blocker. So I love what this guy brings to the table. He's more Hayden Hurst than he is Dallas Goedert, which is a good thing for you because Hayden Hurst, I always say, get you a tight end that can do both. This guy can do both. So he's got toughness, run blocking. Go watch him against Penn State. Go watch him against Ohio State. I'm watching him dominate Nick Bosa in the run game. I'm watching him open up holes against Penn State. Go watch him. Pass blocking ability, that's a little bit laggy. He's a much better run blocker than he is a pass blocker right now. I watched him absolutely stone Nick Bosa in the run game, and then on the very next play, whiff as a pass blocker. And if not for the running back being behind him as a check, he would have got his ass, the quarterback would have gotten his ass blown up because my man Ian Thomas whiffed. But nonetheless, he's solid as a pass blocker, but he's got a little bit more ground to make up there than he does in the run game. That being said, awareness isn't great right now, but it's good enough for it still to be a pro at this point. Versatility, the thing you got to love about Ian Thomas is that you can do anything you want with this guy. You can flex him out wide because he's athletic enough to win one-on-one matchups against safeties and linebackers. You can pull him in tight, in line in a traditional tight end formation setup, and he can win there or he can run block. You don't know. There isn't a tell when this guy's in the game. Oh, Ian Thomas in the game, they got to be trying to throw a pass. There's no tell. There's no telling what he's going to be asked to do on any particular snap because he's versatile enough to even play H-back if you need him to, which he did a lot of at Indiana as well. So versatility off the charts with this guy. Stamina, he was on the field quite a bit for Indiana. Again, love that as well. So we go from all of those pros to his cons, and really his cons simply stem from lack of exposure and production, essentially. His production, only 1 year of real true production. I think that's what scared a number of teams away while this guy's sitting here in the fourth round is because he only had 1 year of real production. And when I say real production, 25 catches, 376 yards, and 5 touchdowns. That's not eye-popping numbers. That doesn't blow your doors off. But what it says to me is this guy is just scratching the surface. And when you watch him, you're really intrigued by what this guy can bring to the table. A red zone threat. He had 2 touchdowns versus Ohio State. That was in the very first game of the season. He had 5 the entire season. So not making it, and again, not all of this is his fault. Okay, didn't have the best quarterback situation at Indiana. That's not the best offense to be in. But only 5 touchdowns on the season doesn't scare people. But I think he can be a red zone threat. Watch that Ohio State game, and you'll see a guy that can make plays and get you some scores once you get down into the money zone. So I like what this guy brings to the table. 36-inch vert means he can get up. He's already 6'4". The sky's the limit for this guy. I'm excited about this draft pick, and I love where he ended up here in Carolina with a tight end that is savvy and very knowledgeable about the game as Greg Olsen is, and a team in which he's going to get some usage. And a lot of 2 tight end sets in Carolina, a lot of situations where he's going to get a chance to play and get the football. In the 4th round, 101st overall selection, Indiana tight end Ian Thomas for me is no draft is perfect, and this is where this draft starts to take a little bit of a sharp turn in the opposite direction. Now, again, as you get later in the draft, this is what you expect to happen. This guy isn't on the same caliber as the rest of the guys that we've talked about already, and that's when you start to see that sharp decline in this draft. 4th round, 136th pick overall. Ole Miss edge rusher Marquise Haynes is the selection. Now, this guy is no bum by any stretch of the imagination. Don't get it twisted. 6'2", 235. That's a little scary because it's not like the Panthers run a 4-3 defense and this guy's going to be standing up at outside linebacker. 235 is pretty damn light for a defensive end. Now, he's going to have to put on more weight. I don't doubt that he's going to be able to do that. Wouldn't shock me that before the first snap of week 1, this guy's weighing 252. But that being said, what does that do to his explosiveness? That's the only thing I question is, I don't question that he's going to put on more weight. If this guy was 245 by the time training camp rolled around, I wouldn't be shocked. And if you told me he was 252 by week 1, it wouldn't surprise me. But what does that do to his explosiveness? Because that's the one trait that this guy brings to the table, is his first step, his get off. You take that away from him, he's not the same player. So that scares me just a little bit. Nonetheless, 23 reps of 2 1/4, 32 career sacks. That's a lot of damn sacks. 12 forced fumbles. That's a lot of forced fumbles. So the production is here in the SEC. Keep in mind, never missed a game his entire career at Ole Miss. So there's something to be said about this guy here. And he was a captain at Ole Miss. So you're getting a leader on the field and a leader off the field as well. So let's get into his pros. Athleticism, 4'6'7". And to me, that's his biggest attribute, is his athleticism and explosiveness. His first couple of steps, they're dynamic. They're not Von Miller, Justin Houston-esque, but it's explosive enough that it's going to give some tackles some problems. The guys that get out of their stance slow, the guys that don't have great kick slides, he's going to be able to beat those guys off the snap with some explosion. And if he can just find a way, and a lot of guys in college, and I talk about this all the time, they don't use their hands. They don't know how to dip the shoulder and finish off the initial rush. You can beat a guy off the snap initially, but if you don't know how to dip and rip, if you don't know how to use your hands to defeat their hands and finish that initial rush, they're just going to push you around the pocket, and they're going to lose the initial battle, but they're going to win the war. He's got to learn how to finish, because I can't tell you how many times I saw him win initially with his first 2 steps off the line of scrimmage, but he didn't finish, and he allowed the tackle to get hands on him, push him up the field. He's got to finish, but he's got some athleticism and a nice get-off. And I'd hate to see that tempered by him putting on weight. We'll see what happens. In any event, awareness, for the most part, he sees what's going on around him. Redirect, he can change directions very fluidly. That's why the twist and the stunts with this guy work so well, because he's able to fake up the field, quickly change directions, and sharply go up the field in one smooth motion. Pass rush ability, it's solid. It's not great because there's no move Rolodex. We'll get into that a little bit later on. Tackling ability, does a good job of getting guys on the ground for the most part. Coverage skills, he seems comfortable in space. Not necessarily great in coverage, but he's not a fish out of water when you ask him to drop. Against Arkansas, he had an interception in that game where he just dropped kind of gracefully over the middle of the field. Quarterback never saw him, and he just picked it off. He's better in zone than man. I don't like him in man coverage. I saw guys run by him in man, but in zone, he has a good feel for where he needs to be on the football field. I don't know if he necessarily does a good job of pattern matching, but he does a good job of finding a good patch of grass and saying, hey, this is my area, and I'll make sure that nobody comes in here and catches the football. That being said, motor and endurance, this is a guy that gives you everything he's got when he's on the football field. I don't worry about that with him. Impact on the game, he was a guy that, like I said, 12 forced fumbles. The impact is there. When you're getting 12 forced fumbles throughout your career and 32 career sacks, you're averaging 3 forced fumbles a season. Think about that for a second. And 8 sacks. That's big-time football, especially in the SEC. But we go from those pros to his cons. His measurables, again, 6'2", a little short, 235, a little light. So, again, for a defense that's a 4-3, what are we doing here? You know what I'm saying? What are we doing here? I don't know. It's one thing if you're Alden Smith and you're 6'5" and you're 240 pounds and you look like a log and you're just long and lanky, but you got long limbs so you're able to defeat blocks. It's not what we're doing here. So that 6'2", 235, it scares me a bit. You can only ask him right now to be a situational pass rusher with that because he can't set an edge, which leads me to my next con. Setting the edge. At 235, what do you want this man to do? Honestly, what are we doing? I mean, again, it's okay to be 235 if you're an outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense because you're going up against tight ends. What are we doing here, though, in a 4-3, base 4-3 defense? What are we doing here? So, again, I don't know. Stop asking. I don't know why. Hand usage, no. None of it. And again, that's something that you have to learn. And a lot of guys, he's not alone in this. A lot of guys come from college. They just don't have any hand usage. And he's no different. Ability versus run. I already talked about him not really setting a physical edge in a run game. So take it for what it's worth. And then PRP. I call it PRP when I'm talking edge rushers. Pass rush plan. Do you have one? Do you go into – and when you have a pass rush plan, this is on a snap-by-snap basis. This isn't, oh, well, this particular guy can get away with this against him. You got to set stuff up, okay? Because I want to be able to take you, move you from the left side to the right side, and maybe even sneak you in on the interior every now and again. I want to be able to move you around. And so I need you to be setting guys up. I need you to say, all right, I'm going to hit him with this speed rush to the outside, these first 3 rushes. And when he starts opening up, trying to account for my speed, I'm going to go inside on his ass. Oh, got him over committing to the outside, I'm going to spin on him. There's none of that right now. He doesn't have a plan in place. He's just trying to win off of pure, unadulterated speed. And when that doesn't work, I'm going to try to convert speed to power. Nah, not having it. So I need him to come up with a pass rush plan. Again, another youngin' that's going to get tutelage from one of the best to ever do it in JPEP. He needs to take this young man under his wing and give him some lessons. So good spot for him. I got questions, not enough answers at this point with Marquise Haynes. And because of that, because of the weight and will he lose a step? And, you know, what are we doing here, folks? I don't know. In the 4th round, 136th overall selection. Edge rusher out of Ole Miss, Marquise Haynes for me is... So this is where the real funk starts to begin in this draft. 5th round, 161st pick overall. Maryland linebacker Jermaine Carter is the selection. This strikes me as a leadership pick, you know, and this guy, This guy smells like a career special teams football player with backup capabilities. I don't see this guy being a starter in this league, not a consistent one at least. But nonetheless, I'll give you what I got. And so I watched him in 3 games against Penn State in 2016, against Ohio State in 17, and against Northwestern in 2017. 6 feet, 228. Right there, that's a problem. But we'll get to that a little bit later on. Here's all the good stuff, though, man. This guy had 29 career tackles for loss, 9 career sacks, which is a hell of a number for a guy playing inside linebacker. And then 6 forced fumbles, 4 of which came in 2017. So he's getting to the football and he's making things happen. Gotta love that. Another one of these guys, never missed a game. Gotta love that. Team captain 2 straight years at Maryland and 3 straight years of 90-plus tackles, and 2 of which in 15 and 16 over 100 tackles. So very busy, very active, very solid football player. So you say, what's the beef here, man? Hold on, I'm gonna tell you in a second. Let's get through the good stuff first. Speed, 4.69 40. Not very fast, but not the slowest guy in the world. I think sometimes you see some of these LSU linebackers like Deion Jones coming in, and some of these Ohio State linebackers that come in and blaze a 40, and you're like, hey, that's fast. And then you see 4.69, you're like, hey, that's slow. More guys are running closer to 4.69 than they are 4.47. Okay, so get that out of your brain. It's not fast, but it's not slow either. Athleticism, he's a solid athlete. Similar to his speed, it's solid. It's not great. It's not great. It's not bad. It's solid. Redirect, it's okay. He can stop and change directions. He's just not the best athlete. So it doesn't look as fluid, but it's solid. Again, you're going to hear me say that with him a lot. Taking on blocks, he's okay at that. He's not afraid of contact, which is a good thing. Tackling ability, I told you the man had over 100 tackles twice and over 93 straight years. So, guy can get people on the ground. Zone coverage, he does a good job in his zone drops. Doesn't make anything happen. But, look, he gets a good depth on his drops. I don't have a problem with that. Blitzing capabilities. I told you the man had 9 career sacks. You got to be doing something right. And I watched him blitz a couple of times. One versus Penn State, one versus Northwestern. I was like, that's impressive. I see why you got 9 sacks. So you go from all of those pros to his cons. Measurables, 6 feet, 228. Again, another guy that I fully expect to put on weight, but Jermaine Carter can't afford to put on too many pounds. He's already not the best athlete in the world. So you take this 228-pound frame and you make it 235. Let's put 7 on him. That 4.69 is probably a 4.73 at this point. He didn't have a lot to spare as it was. So, again, I don't know. Don't ask me. Stop asking. Acceleration. I saw this guy had the angle. Now, I know it's Saquon Barkley. Not fair. I get it. But he had the angle versus Saquon Barkley. Did he catch him? I'm going to let you draw your own inference there. Awareness. He's one of those guys, he's got to see it to believe it, and he feels it in his bones, but he won't go. I got to see it. I know I saw it on film. I know we watched. Coach, I know we went over this on tape, but I still need to see it, man. Got to check and verify first. I need to see it. By that time, bro, you done gave up 4 yards on this run. Go make the play. When he does that, dude is a machine. Shed and slip. I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't keep Jermaine Carter clean, don't worry about it. The man will do nothing for you. I watched this man completely get completely washed out of plays. Dudes just took him, uprooted and moved him 4 or 5 yards out the play. You keep him clean, and he's going to get you 8, 9, 10, 12, 14 tackles in a game. Put a body, and again, I know I'm not telling you nothing you don't already know. Take any linebacker in the league and you put a big 300-pound guy on them, it's hard for them to make plays. Some guys, and this is where you separate good from great from elite, the good ones, they probably not going to get off that block. The great ones, they're going to get off of that block some of the time. The elite ones, they get off of it most of the time. You have one, so you know. You got 2, so you know what I'm talking about. But This dude gets off none of the time, okay? You put a body on him, finito, he's done, finished. Range, it's limited, man. Really, really limited. I don't know what you were trying to do here. Depth, maybe? You know, maybe you were trying to replace the A.J. Klein who left in free agency a year or two ago. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe you don't like the depth at linebacker. I don't love this pick. You know I don't love this pick. As a matter of fact, in the 5th round, 161st pick overall, Maryland linebacker Jermaine Carter for me. Mr. Carter. J. Carter, you must try harder. Competition is nada. I said that about him, and then we got another linebacker here that I'm here to tell you. Shoulder shrug. I don't know. The only thing that's saving him is that I have a little bit more hope that there's a light at the end of the tunnel with him. With Jermaine, I know what he's about because I can look at Jermaine and say, you should know better. You've been doing this for 4 years. This young man here, he's a pup. He's a spring chicken. He don't know no better. He's like that 2-year-old that you like, hey, tell him to stop touching that. And he's like, nah, don't hit him. He don't know better. He should, but he don't know better yet. Jermaine is like he's 8. He know better. Stop doing that, man. This guy here, 7th round, 234th overall selection. North Carolina linebacker Andre Smith might have a shot. So this dude looks the part at 6 feet, 237, and you ask, what's the difference? Jermaine was 6 feet. Jermaine was 228. 10 pounds makes a huge difference in this league. I don't know if you know that or not. 9 to be exact, but who's counting, right? It makes a huge difference when you're 6 feet, 237 versus 6 feet, 228. Now, in any event, 19 reps of 2 1/4. This guy had a knee injury that cost him all but 2 games of 2017. So this is the reason he's here in the 7th round. He doesn't have that knee injury. Let's just say he has a mediocre year and decides to come out. This guy's a 5th round pick probably, not a 7th round. Might have even went a little bit sooner because of what people can project him as. You have a nasty injury and all of a sudden people get scared and they're like, hey, he might not be able to help me right away. I know what I saw before the injury. What am I going to get post-injury? You get questions. Well, we're going to see what those answers look like, but let's go through what this guy brings to the table. Watched him in 3 games, all of them in 2016, because even though he got off to a nice start in 2017 with 21 tackles and I believe he had an interception against NC State, I believe, doesn't matter. The best of what he was able to provide was all in 2016, so that's where I went and did my homework. Versus Georgia in 2016, versus Pitt, and also versus Florida State, all in 2016. So let's get to the pros. His measurables, I put that on the pro side of things. 237, that's a good weight for a linebacker in today's NFL. The 6 feet isn't that great, but I'd settle for 6 feet in a 240-pound package, essentially. The speed at 4.63, he's a good athlete, man. He's a really solid athlete. He's not great, he's a good athlete. Athleticism, acceleration, all of those things are all in that solid range. Once again, taking on blocks, he's not afraid of contact, similar to what I said with Jermaine Carter. Tackling ability, this is a guy that had over 100 tackles in 2016, so he can do that if given the opportunity to do so. That's all the good that I have for this guy right now. But you get to his cons. He's not the greatest athlete when in terms of moving around the football field, and not in the way that he looks. You look at him, you're like, man, this dude look like he's supposed to be running all over the place. His redirect, he doesn't change directions fluidly. His awareness isn't where it needs to be. Again, lack of playing time for this guy. I think he's going to get better at this. He just needs more. He probably would have been better served going back to school, to be honest with you. But after having a serious knee injury, I don't blame him for saying, man, this could happen to me again, and then what will happen to my career? One knee injury made him a 7th round pick. I'd shudder to think what a second could do to him. So I understand where he's coming from. He probably would have been better served going back to school, though. But nonetheless, his awareness isn't great. You know, a lot of times he's slow to react to things because he doesn't see it before it happens. He, again, much like Jermaine Carter, he needs to see it first. And even then, he's still a little slow. Jermaine Carter probably a little bit faster in reacting. He's still a little slow. But when he does see it, there's a play against Georgia where he's in the backfield. There's a play against Florida State where he's in the backfield. And you're like, dude, if you could give me that, if I could get that, that's what I'm talking about. But the problem is you don't get that from him as often as you would like. And that's the problem. You know, if he shoots his gun and just says, all right, I'm going to take a shot. He could be making plays, but he didn't do it often enough. Shed and slip, another one of these dudes, if a body is on him, he's done. And unlike Jermaine Carter, who just gets totally washed out of plays, he's not getting washed out of it. He's just not getting off of the block. He's not shedding that block and getting to the ball carrier. Man coverage, zone coverage, it's not good enough. To the point now where he might just strictly be a two-down linebacker. At least Jermaine Carter could drop into coverage. But again, maybe I need to see more of it. Maybe I didn't see enough of it. Maybe that's the case. So, blitzing capabilities, I didn't see him blitzing up. I'm lying. I saw him blitz plenty. He never hit home. His blitzes were very ordinary, very bland. There was no deception. He didn't time them up well. And then his range it's meh. So the only reason that this guy I said all of this and this guy's isn't as bad off as Jermaine Carter is because yet there's still hope for Andre Smith. If he looks more like the 2016 guy that made plays, there's something here. If he's the guy that's going to sit on his hands and wait for something to happen, then he's just as bad as Jermaine Carter. But if he's the guy, if they can get this out of him, and maybe this comes with film study, more experience, and him just being in an environment that is able to help him flourish, maybe you get the most out of Andre Smith and he's not as bad. Because when he's at his best, he's got something, which I can't really say about Jermaine Carter. Even at his best, he's a try-hard guy. At Andre Smith's best, he could be a problem at the next level. At his worst, he could be out of the league in 3 years. He could not make this Panthers roster and bounce around the league for 2 years on practice squads and then be out of the league. We're going to see. But the potential, I said all of that to say this. The potential is there, and because of that, in the 7th round, 234th overall pick, linebacker out of North Carolina, Andre Smith is... And finally, we round out this draft in the 7th round, 242nd pick overall. Miami defensive lineman Kendrick Norton is the selection. So, 6'3", 314. He's got NFL bloodlines. His dad is the great Ken Norton Jr., 30 reps of 2 1/4, 5 career sacks, 18 tackles for loss, missed 1 game out of 39 in his career, so very durable. And that 1 game that he missed came in 2015. This guy came out early. I don't know if he would have been better served going back to school or not, because I don't know him going back to school changes anything in his game at all. He is what he is as a football player, which is probably why his dad and others told him, just go ahead and come out. No reason to go back to school in any event. I'll just run through him quickly. Watched him in 3 games versus Duke, Virginia, and Wisconsin, all in 2017. Measurables at 6'3", 314. That's a big pro for him. Point of attack physicality. When he's on balance and not trying to swim move to win, he stands up at the point of attack. When he tries to swim move, guys are getting up under his arms and just pushing him out of the damn way. Tackling ability, when he gets his hands on guys, he does a good job of getting them down, but that seems to be infrequent. But nonetheless, when he does, he gets them on the ground. Motor and endurance, they're solid. They're not great, but they're not poor to the point where it's a negative impact on the game. He's a guy that can make some plays on the other side of the line of scrimmage, as I referenced at the top. So he does have an impact on the game from a standpoint of mucking up runs up the middle, being disruptive on the other side of the line of scrimmage, and just being a big body in the middle of a defense. That being said, not the greatest athlete in the world as we get to his cons. Not a great mover, especially when you're asking him to move laterally. Hand usage is non-existent except for a swim move that a lot of times doesn't work anyhow. Redirect is not good. Obviously, you're asking a 314-pound man to stop and change directions. It's just not going to happen very often smoothly. And he's got a lot of bad weight on him, too. He's not a nice 314. You know how some of these guys, they have a really good sculpted body at 314, like the guy out of Fort Hays State. Where you just say, man, that's a nice looking 314. That's not what this is. This you can see the 314 on this guy here. Pass rush ability and ability versus the run, neither of them knocked my socks off. I was not impressed with either one at all. This guy doesn't move me. He's just another guy up front. He can make your roster because he's a 314-pounder with NFL bloodlines, and he's a big body up front. And if this is your way of replacing Star Lotulelei, go right ahead, knock yourself out. He's not Star, I can tell you that much. But he's just another guy up front. And if you're satisfied with just another guy up front, knock yourself out. But Dontari Poe, who you signed in the offseason, is way better than this guy. And it wouldn't shock me if this guy was stashed away on the practice squad and you work with him. It wouldn't shock me if he made your roster and he was just a rotational depth guy. I don't see him morphing into anything more than that. With all the guys you've got up front, he'll never be more than that on this Panthers roster. Between Short and Butler and now Poe, Norton may just come into the mix and just be an extra body up front. But in any event, 7th round, 242nd pick overall, Miami defensive lineman Kendrick Norton is a So that's the Panthers draft in a nutshell. Look, Marty Hurney, he did it again. He's back in the saddle, and this draft was outstanding, especially the first half of this draft. Getting Cam some much-needed help and relief in the form of targets in DJ Moore and Ian Thomas. Solidifying a very shaky secondary with some young, talented football players. Again, I got my questions and doubts about Dante Jackson. I have no questions and doubts about the talent that Rashawn Golden possesses. It's a matter of where you play him and how he's able to come in. I think with the suspension early on to Thomas Davis, you're going to ask Shaq Thompson to maybe move into that spot that's going to be vacated by no Thomas Davis. Maybe that's going to give Rashawn Golden a chance to get on the football field and do some of the things that you would have normally asked Shaq Thompson to do. And in that time period, he may be able to show you that he's capable of handling those responsibilities, and maybe that will get him on the field a lot sooner rather than later. We'll see, because I think the Panthers, I think they like what they might have already at the safety position. I could be wrong there, but I think I'm in love with what was done early in this draft. And even Marquise Haynes, I think, has some talent. Just a matter of him trying to figure out what this guy is going to be weight-wise, and if he's going to lose any of that explosiveness. Nonetheless, this is what this draft amounts to when it's all said and done. So that's the Panthers 2018 draft wrap-up, and that's going to do it for your man, Louie Tee. Thank you for joining me on this program. Remember, we're changing the game one video at a time. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Like my Facebook page. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram. All of those things are down below in the description of this video. If you can donate to my PayPal or my Patreon page. A lot of ways you can get in contact. So LouieTeeNetwork.net, the podcast, Louie Tee Network podcast, all of those things are there for your consumption. So check me out. And I'll be back with plenty more of these breakdowns. I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. See you next time. Have a good one.
Louie Tee Network.